There is a specific reason why you clicked on something so long tonight. You weren't looking for a tip. If tips worked, you'd have been finished years ago. You clicked because something in your life keeps happening. The same pattern, the same evening.
You are not enough.
The same voice in your head at 2 a.m. telling you the same thing it told you last year. And you want, just once, for someone to explain the machinery instead of handing you a checklist. That's what this is. Everything you are about to hear came out of my own life. I've been addicted. I've come back from my own mind, turning into a place I couldn't live in. I've had 6 years of therapy. I've quit lives that people applauded. And I've spent 3 years turning all of it into an honest report instead of highlight reel. So here's what's actually in front of you. You'll find out why the part of you actively works against your own life and why this part isn't your enemy. You will hear a conversation that I had with myself that changed almost everything in my life. The one I recommend you have alone, out loud when nobody's home. I'll show you what a month of writing everything down did to my head, honest results, including what didn't work. You'll hear why the version of you that is suffering right now might be the closest you've ever been to becoming who you are supposed to be. There is what a video game taught me about my own mind that no book managed to. And it ends with 3 years of doing something in public that almost nobody watched. And what that did to me, I'm not a guru, I don't have a system to sell you. I'm someone a few steps down a path, turning around to tell you what the road looks like from here. One thing before we start, don't try to make notes on all of it. Somewhere in the next 2 hours, one sentence will land differently than the rest, and you will feel it physically. A small drop in your chest. That one is yours and everything else is a context. Get comfortable, put it on while you cook, while you walk, while you can't sleep. Let's start where everything starts, with the part of you that keeps running things on purpose. Most people spend their entire life to build something better. Better habits, better routines, better relationships, or better version of themselves. Adding, always adding. More discipline, more productivity, more self-improvement and more optimization. And somehow, despite all the adding, their life stays the same or gets worse. And here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. Most of the time the problem is not what you are missing, it's what you are doing. The specific patterns, beliefs, habits and behavior that you carry into every new attempt, that undo every new beginning, that quietly, consistently and reliably ruin the thing you are trying to build. We don't talk about this enough, not because it's complicated, because it's uncomfortable to admit that the person making your life harder is you. I want to tell you about period of my life where I was doing everything right on the surface. I was sober, I was working, I was rebuilding after addiction and psychosis. I had a plan, I had the routines, I was doing the things that were supposed to work. And underneath all of that, I was systematically undoing every piece of progress I was making. Not dramatically, not in an obvious way. In the specific, quiet ways that are hardest to see, because they feel normal. I was isolating from people who could help me and calling it independence. I was overworking to the point of exhaustion and calling it discipline. I was avoiding the conversation that needed to happen and calling it patience. I was consuming self-improvement content for hours and calling it growth. Every single one of these things felt like the right choice in the moment.
I see it now. The path is clear. No longer a mystery, just execution.
Every single one of them was making my life worse. And here's what I couldn't see at the time. I wasn't failing to build a better life because I wasn't trying hard enough. I was failing because I was simultaneously building it with one hand and tearing it down with another hand. The addiction had been obvious, visible, named. These patterns were invisible. They looked like virtues. That's the most dangerous kind of self-destruction. The kind that wears a costume of self-improvement. It took me a long time to understand that the question wasn't what do I need to add to make this work. The question was what am I doing that keeps making this not work. There is a concept in psychology that's called self-defeating behavior, patterns of action that feels normal, rational and sometimes virtuous, but consistently produce outcomes that undermines what the person says they want. The key word here is consistently. This is not one bad decision. This is a pattern. Something you keep doing that produces the same results, while you keep expecting a different one. And what makes self-defeating behavior so hard to see and stop is that it almost serves a function. The isolation that looks like independence.
Just say it.
I can't.
Serves the function of avoiding the vulnerability of being seen and potentially rejected. The overwork that looks like discipline serves the function of not sitting still long enough to feel what the underneath, the busyness. The avoided conversation that looked like patience serves the function of not risking. The self-improvement consumption that looks like growth serves the function of feeling like you are moving without actually moving. Every self-ruining behavior is serving a need, and until you understand what it needs, you can't stop the behavior, because stopping it means the need goes unmet, and the nervous system will not allow that without the fight. This is why willpower doesn't work for this. You can white knuckle your way, your behavior through days, weeks, sometimes months. But if underlying need is unmet, the pattern comes back, because it was never about behavior. It was about what the behavior was doing for you. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we can't see because they operate from level below of our conscious awareness. The shadow doesn't announce itself. It doesn't say, I'm about to make you isolate yourself because the connection feels dangerous. It just makes isolation feel reasonable, comfortable or even noble. And you go along with this because it feels like a choice when it's actually a pattern. There is another layer to this. Psychologists call this negativity bias. The brain is wired to weight losses more heavily than gains, to register threats more urgently than opportunities. That means that what is actually running your life has more power over your experience than an equivalent positive thing has. One toxic habit in your day has more impact on the quality of life than 3 healthy ones. One relationship that consistently drains you has more effect on your well-being than 2 that nourish you. One belief that tells you are not capable of does more damage than 5 accomplishments can repair. This is why subtraction is more powerful than addition. Removing what's ruining your life is not the same as adding something good. It's not equal, it's more. The fastest road to a better life is not a building more on top of a rubble. It's removing what created the rubble. So, if self-ruining patterns are so damaging, why don't we just stop? 3 reasons, all of them real. First, we don't see them. The most destructive patterns are the ones that feel like personality.
You are not enough.
Like just the way you are. I'm someone who works hard. I'm someone who values independence. I'm someone who doesn't like conflict. This doesn't sound like self-descriptions. They often defenses dressed as identity. The patterns that have been with you the longest are hardest to see because they've become the water you swim in. You don't notice water. Second, they are familiar. The brain prefers familiar pain to unfamiliar uncertainty. Staying in the pattern is uncomfortable, but known. Living is uncomfortable and unknown. And the nervous system, which prioritizes survival, chooses known almost every time. It's not weakness, it's neuroscience. The system is working exactly how it's designed. It just wasn't designed for a life you are trying to build. Third, stopping feels like a loss. If overwork is how you prove your worth, stopping the overwork feels like losing self-worth. If isolation is how you've stayed safe, ending of isolation feels like ending of safety. If self-improvement consumption is how you've felt that you are making progress, stopping it feels like stopping progress. You are not losing the behavior. You feel like you are losing what the behavior was providing. And until something else can provide it, the pattern stays. So what do you actually do? No more, less, but specifically. First, find the pattern, not the symptom. The symptom is what you are doing. The pattern is what makes you doing it multiple times.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel. subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
Ask yourself, where in my life I keep getting the same result despite trying to change it. Not one bad outcome, the same outcome repeatedly. The repetition is the signal. Something is running underneath that. Something that needs to be seen before it can change. Second, find the function. When you've identified the pattern, ask what it's doing for you. Not why is this bad, but what does this protect me from? This question requires honesty that most people avoid, because the answer is usually something they don't want to admit they're afraid of. Connection, failure, visibility, the specific vulnerability that the pattern was built to defend. Name it, write it down. The naming is not the solution, but nothing changes until the naming happens. Third, remove before you replace. Most people try to replace a bad pattern with a better one immediately. It rarely works, because the bad pattern is still doing its job. Two things fighting for the same function. Remove first, create the gap. Sit in the discomfort of unmet need long enough to understand it. Then find something that actually meets the need rather than just occupying the space. This is slower. This is the only thing that works. The version of me that was building and destroying simultaneously. That person wasn't broken. He was doing exactly what made sense, what he believed about himself, and what he believed was safe. The isolation made sense. The overwork made sense. The avoidance made sense. Everything makes sense in the context. The work wasn't to judge those patterns. It was to see them clearly enough to understand what they are protecting, and then to ask whether that protection is still necessary. You are not ruining your life because you are weak. You are not ruining your life because you don't care.
Yeah.
You're running it in the specific ways you do, because something in you learned that those patterns were the safest ways to survive. They got you here. The question is whether you need them to get where you're actually going. The answer is more often than not is no. You don't need to add anything. You need to stop caring what already has done its job. There is a conversation most people never have. Not with a therapist, not with a partner, not with anyone who can answer back in a way that makes the problem easier to carry. The conversation I'm talking about is the one you have with yourself, not the running commentary in your head.
You are not enough.
Not the planning and reviewing and worrying that fills every available silence. The actual conversation. The one where you sit down with the parts of yourself you've been avoiding and ask them honestly what they want, what they are afraid of, why they keep doing what they do. I had that conversation once during the darkest period of my life, and not because I wanted it, because I had run out of everything else to try. And what happened in that conversation changed that any book can taught you, any therapy session, any self-improvement framework I had ever found. I want to tell you about a specific moment. I was deep in addiction, not the beginning of it, where you can still tell yourself it's under control. The middle of it, where you know exactly what's happening and you keep doing it anyway. And there was this voice, not a metaphor, actual internal voice that I have been arguing with for years.
You are doing everything right.
That told me that I was ruining everything, that I was wasting life that I could have had, that the person I was supposed to become was watching from somewhere and losing his patience. My response to that voice for years was to drown it. Substances, business and distractions, anything that could make it quieter. And one night, I don't know why that night specifically, I stopped drowning it. I sat with it. And instead of fighting it, instead of trying to argue or justify, I asked it a question. I had never asked it this question. What do you actually want? Not why are you ruining my life? Not why won't you leave me alone? What do you actually want? And the answer that came back was not what I expected. It wasn't judgment, it wasn't condemnation. It was something that sounded more like a grief. I wanted the life I had been promising myself for years and never building. I wanted to create, to be free, to matter. It wasn't against me. It had never been against me. It was the part of me that remembered what I actually wanted when I was still honest enough to want it. Carl Jung spent entire his life arguing that most people haven't fully absorbed. You are not a one person. You are a collection of subpersonalities, different parts and different voices, different aspects of the self that is far more complex than the single narrator you present to the world. Jung called this the psyche, a wall with many parts, not a simple unity. And one of those parts, the part he spent the most time investigating, was the shadow. The shadow is not your enemy. It is not an evil part of you. It is a part you rejected. The feelings you were taught not to feel. The desires you were taught that wrong. The parts of yourself that didn't fit into the version of yourself that is acceptable to your family, your culture and your peers. And so were pushed down and hidden. The shadow doesn't disappear when you hide it. It goes underground, and from the underground it runs. It shows up as a pattern you can't explain, the reaction that seems disproportional, the self-sabotage that arrives when the things goes well, the voice that criticizes you at 3 a.m. when you are too tired to fight it. That voice is not your enemy. That voice is your shadow trying to be heard, and it will get louder the longer you refuse to listen. Internal family systems therapy, developed by Richard Schwartz, takes this further. It maps the internal world as a system of parts, each with its own perspective, its own fear, its own reason of existing. The inner critic has a job to protect you from failure by pointing out flaws first. The parts that procrastinates has a job to protect you from exposure of trying and being seen to fail. The part that self-destruct has a job to release pressure that has built to an unbearable level and has no other exit. Every part of you is trying to help you in the only way it knows how, with the tools it has, which are often the tools of a much younger version of you. Who was doing the best they could with what they had. The question is not how do I silence it. The question is what is this part trying to do for me.
You are the best. Keep going.
And is there a better way to do it? So how do you actually have this conversation? Not as a concept, as a practice. First, create the conditions for honesty. The internal dialogue that changes things does not happen in the middle of a busy day. It happens in stillness. 10 minutes, no phone, no input, no output, and just sitting whatever comes. Not meditation exactly, just presence. The specific willingness to sit with whatever arrives without immediately managing it. Most people have never done this because what arrives is uncomfortable. That discomfort is the beginning of conversation. Second, ask the right questions. Not why am I like this? That question leads to judgment and loops. Ask what you are trying to protect me from. Direct the question at the specific part that is causing the most difficulty right now. The voice that criticizes.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel. Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
The part that avoids, the part that is angry, afraid or numb. What are you trying to protect me from? And then there is the hardest part, to listen, without defending, without explaining, without immediately deciding that the answer is wrong.
It is a lie. They know.
Third, negotiate rather than fight. When you understand what the part is protecting, you can offer it something better. Not I'm going to stop listening to you, but I understand why you do this. Let me try something different. And if it doesn't work, I'll come back. This sounds like a conversation with another entity.
Hi, what's up? Haha.
In a sense, it is. The parts of you that formed in childhood did not update automatically when you grew up. They are still running the old software. Talking to them directly, negotiating rather than suppressing, is how the software updates. That conversation during addiction was not the end of everything. It was the beginning of a different relationship with myself. Not a fixed relationship, not one without conflict, but one where conflict stopped being something I was losing and started being something where I participated in it. The voice that had been criticizing me for years was not trying to destroy me. That was a part of me that was still believed was capable of more than I was doing. That belief expressed painfully, badly, through self-criticism and sabotage was the most loyal thing inside me. The most important conversation in your life is not one that you will have with another person. It's the one you keep postponing with yourself. The parts of you that you've been drowning out, the voices you've been arguing with, the shadow you've been running from. They are not waiting to destroy you. They are waiting to be asked what they want. And the answer almost always is something you already knew, something you stopped letting yourself want, because wanting is feel dangerous. Tell me in comments what part of you've been avoiding to talk with. Press like and subscribe. This will have to grow this channel and reach people more like you. So let's rise together. Have a good flight. Every self-improvement system eventually tells you the same thing. Write it down. Track your habits, journal your thoughts, put your goals on paper and review them every morning. The notebook will hold you accountable. The notebook will make you consistent.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
The notebook will show you who you are becoming. And I decided to test that. 1 month, every day, a structured self-improvement notebook with habit tracking, daily reflection, weekly reviews, the whole system. The results were not what I expected. Some of it worked better than I thought it would. Some of it revealed something I wasn't ready to see. And one thing changed the way I think about written self-improvement completely. I want to be honest about why I started this experiment. It was not because I believed in notebooks. It was because I had been avoiding them. I have a complicated relationship with tracking, with measuring, with putting numbers on things that feel too important to reduce to number. Creativity, energy, focus and mood. These are real things that move in a complex ways. The idea of rating them on a scale of 1 to 10 every morning felt like a reduction of something that deserved more than a number. And underneath that resistance, which I recognized as resistance even at the time, was something else. The fear of what would I see if I actually look at my patterns honestly, over time and writing, with no way to rationalize away. A notebook doesn't forget. It doesn't adjust its memory to how I feel today. It just shows you what was true on every day you wrote. That terrified me, so I did it. I use a structured system with 3 components. Morning pages, 2 to 3 sentences about the day ahead. What matters today, what I want to feel by the end of the day. 1 intention, not a to-do list, an intention. Evening review, what actually happened. Where I showed up for what I said mattered, where I didn't, and 1 sentence about why. Weekly review, Sunday, 10 minutes, looking at a full week as a unit, not judging, noticing. Habit tracking, 5 specific things that I want to accomplish, each one marked with a simple yes or no. No point system, no streaks, just honest mark. The total daily time, approximately 8 minutes. Morning 4 minutes, evening 4 minutes. That's it, nothing elaborate. The simplicity was intentional. I didn't want to test whether I could maintain a complex system.
Wow.
I wanted to test whether daily written honest reflection changed anything. Week 1. The first thing I noticed how hard it was to read 1 honest intention at the morning. Not because I didn't have intention, because most of them were not honest. They were performances. Things that I should want, things that sounded good on paper. Writing them down and then reviewing them 8 hours later revealed the gap immediately. I said my intention was to be present in my work. I spent 3 hours that weren't my work and called it research. The notebook saw it. I couldn't unsee it. The discomfort, the specific discomfort of being confronted by your own written record. That was the most useful thing that happened in the week 1. Week 2, the habit tracking revealed the pattern I had been vaguely aware of but never confirmed. My most productive days was not the days I was most motivated. They were the days that I had slept enough at night. Not a revolutionary insight, but seeing it in writing day after day made it real in a way that knowing it abstractly had not. The data was not complex, but it was mine and it was true. Week 3. This was the hardest week. I had been writing evening review honestly, and what writing was showing me was a pattern that I didn't want to see. I was consistently showing up for the channel, for the content, for the work that other people could see, and consistently not showing up to the things that matter only to me. The bonsai, the cooking, the reading that wasn't research, the resting that wasn't sleep. The notebook wasn't creating this pattern, it was revealing it, and the revelation was uncomfortable in the way that genuine knowledge always is. Week 4. By the end of week 4, something shifted. Not my habits, not dramatically, but my relationship to the honesty. The evening review stopped feeling like an accusation and started feeling like a conversation. I stopped writing what sounds good and started writing what was true, and the true version was more interesting, more specific and more useful.
You are not enough.
The intention every morning became real rather than performed because I knew the evening was coming and the evening didn't accept performances. 1 month, here's what I actually found. What genuinely worked. The morning intention. The one real morning intention.
You are the best. Keep going.
Not a to-do list. Changed the quality of mornings completely. Not every morning, most morning. The act of naming what matters.
You are doing everything right.
Before the day interrupts the default of reacting to whatever comes first, the evening review changed my relationship to honesty completely. Writing something true about the day, even when it was uncomfortable, built a tolerance for self-knowledge that I did not have at the start of first month. The habit data revealed patterns I could act on. Sleep and productivity, the relationship was undeniable. I acted on it. The data made it impossible to rationalize it. What didn't work the way I expected? The consistency wasn't consistent. I missed 7 days out of 30, and the missed days were not random. They were the days where I most needed to write. The hard days, the days where the honest review would have been the most uncomfortable. The notebook revealed my avoidance by showing me exactly when I avoided. What surprised me the most valuable thing the notebook did was not help me to build habits. It was help me see myself not as I wanted to be, as I actually was on each specific day. That seeing accumulated over the month is worth more than any system. If you want to try this, 1 month, simple system. Here what I will tell you before you start. Keep it simpler than you think. 1 intention in the morning, 1 honest sentence in the evening. That is enough to start. The elaborate system collapses under their own weight. The simple system actually reveals what you need to see. Don't track what sounds good, track what matters. The habits on your tracker should be the ones that actually move something important in your life, not the ones that looks impressive. The ones you already know matter and keep not doing it. Third is to read back. The notebook only works when you look at what you wrote, weekly at minimum. The pattern is in accumulation. 1 day tells you what happened, 30 days tells you what you are. I still use notebook, not every day, most days. The 7 days I missed became 8, then came back to most. The relationship with it has changed. It started as an experiment. It became something closer to a mirror. Not a mirror that shows you what you want to see. The mirror that actually shows what already is there. The notebook did not change my life in 30 days, but it changed something more specific and more useful than a life change. It changed my relationship to honesty about my own life, and that slowly changes everything. Every piece of self-improvement content you've ever consumed agrees on a thing about your pain. Fix it, reduce it, optimize it away. And if you are still hurting after routines and the systems and the mindset shifts, the conclusion is obvious. You must be doing it wrong. I want to give you the opposite possibility. Not that pain is good. I'm not going to romanticize suffering on camera, but that some pain is not a malfunction. It's a process, and every attempt to fix it slows the process down. There's one question that separates the two kinds. Ask it honestly and you will know within about a minute whether the thing you are in right now is damage or transformation. I'll give you the question, but not yet, because I couldn't ask it myself for years. And the reason I couldn't is the actual story here. So let me tell you what it feels like when the structures of who you are stops holding. And I've been through psychosis, and I'm not going to give you clinical description. You can find that anywhere. What it feels like from the inside is this. Reality stops being reliable, not the world outside. The framework you use to interpret it, the things you believe in yourself, that you have a solid perspective, that your perception could be trusted, that there was a stable you doing the perceiving. All of it revealed as a provisional, as assembled as something that can, under enough pressure, come apart in your hands, which is terrifying. And also it took me a long time to be able to say this completely accurate, because the structure that broke down, a structure that had been assembled mostly out of other people's expectations.
It is a lie. They know.
A self built from what was needed of me, held together by escape when it strained. That's what was under the pressure. That's what came apart. While it was happening, I wanted one thing: for it to stop. That's the only report from inside it. No insight, no perspective, just a person wanting the ground back. Then came the years after, and here's the part I actually want you to hear, because I think it's a more common experience, more common than a psychosis by far. I spent those years trying to get back to the person before, rebuilding the exact structure that had been collapsed. Thicker walls this time, tighter control, more certainty, more systems, all of it in service of one goal. Never let that happen again.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel. Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
I was, with enormous effort and sincerity, reconstructing the thing that needed to fall. That was real damage, not the collapse, the reconstruction. Years spent reconstructing a house that had been condemned for a good reason, and calling it repair work recovery. So what finally stopped me? A distinction I'd never heard anyone make. It changed everything, and it's the reason this video exists. Start with the research, because it isn't a French idea. In the 19th, the psychologists Tedeschi and Calhoun named something they kept finding in the data. People who go through severe suffering don't only return to a baseline. A significant portion grow past it. Deeper self-knowledge, clearer values, more capacity for meaning, and more connection than they had before. Post-traumatic growth. Not everyone, not automatically, not without work, but often enough to become one of the most studied effects in the field. And notice the mechanism carefully, because this is where the industry gets it backward. The suffering didn't cause the growth. The suffering created conditions in which growth became possible. Something had to come apart for anything new to be built. Which brings the distinction. There are two kinds of suffering, and they feel identical from the inside. Damage, pain that isn't pointing at anything. Injury that needs standing, treatment or a professional support, real care. Not everything painful is meaningful, and pretending otherwise is its own cruelty. Signals the specific pain that arrives when a part of your life is trying to change and the old structure is resisting the change. That's not injury, that's a tension in a system in a mid-transformation. Same feeling, completely different meaning. And here's how you tell them apart. The question I promised you. Damage stays the same, signal changes when you engage with it. That's it, damage pain is static. It hurts identically whether you look at it or run from it. It reveals nothing about itself over time. Signal pain moves the moment you stop running. It shifts, it clarifies, it starts to pointing at something specific, a relationship, a pattern, a version of you that's expired. Sit with damage and it just hurt. Sit with signal and it starts talking. me? I couldn't ask that question for years, and now the reason is obvious. I was never still long enough to see whether my pain changed when I engaged with it. I was running entire time, rebuilding, controlling, escaping. You cannot tell which kind of pain you are in while sprinting away from it. If you are sitting there, running your own pain through this test right now, like button help this reach the next person. Being told they are suffering means they are failing. And comment below which kind you are in, damage or signal. Sometimes naming it is where the whole thing turned. Frankl, who came out from the camps and built a framework from it, put it in a line I keep coming back to. Suffering stops being suffering the moment it finds the meaning. And I don't read that as an instruction to manufacture meaning for every hard thing. I read it as a signal pain specifically. That kind already has meaning. It means something fixed is becoming fluid. Something that needed to move is finally moving. Now why nobody in your feed made this distinction? Because signal pain is unsellable. You cannot optimize it, shortcut it, or route around it with a morning routine. The whole point of it is that it must be passed through. So the industry does the only commercially viable thing. It reclassifies the process as a problem and sells you the solution. And you spend years solving something that was never a problem, which is almost exactly the description of my reconstruction years. So what do you actually do instead? 3 things. First, stop using the absence of pain as your progress metric. This is the big one. If comfort is your only gauge of whether life is working, you will systematically avoid all the processes that requires discomfort to complete, and those are most processes that matter. Swap metric, not how much does this hurt, but is anything moving? Am I different from 6 months ago?
That's a 2-year of workout.
Is the pain pointing at something that's specific than it used to? Growth is measured in movement, never in comfort. I've been comfortable in periods when nothing in me was moving. That's not health, that's a storage. Second, ask the pain what it's pointing at out loud. Not how do I make this stop. Other question, what are you showing me? Sit with it long enough for sensation to become information. And here's what surprised me most when I finally did this. Signal pain almost always knows exactly what it's pointing at, and you almost always already knew that. You've known for a while. The pain isn't delivering news, it's making news impossible to keep ignoring. Third, learn to tolerate the unfinished. Transformation has a middle, and the middle is the worst part. The old structure is gone and the new one hasn't formed. Nobody warns you about the middle.
You are not enough.
It's where most people turn around and rebuild the old thing exactly like I did, because unfinished felt unbearable.
So that's the plan?
And the old structure at least had a shape. The capacity to stay in the middle, to be between who you were and who you are becoming, without fleeing backward, is the single most important skill in real change. Not the capacity to feel no pain, the capacity to feel it and remain. And there is an alternative of all of this. Always. You can stop the pain by stopping the change. That option is real and it's available today. It just carries a cost, and the cost is quiet and it collects later. I'll tell you exactly when it collects right now. The version of me that went through that collapse didn't survive it. Not in a way we mean survival. He didn't come out intact, he came out different. And something in his structure never reassembled in the original shape. I grieved that for years, treated the difference as damage, tried to get him back. He was the problem. That's the whole thing I wish someone had taught me. The person I was trying to restore was the one who needed to end. And the cost of the unchanged life, here's when it collects. Not dramatically, it shows up at 3 AM in the specific silence of a life that stayed the same when it needed to move. That's the bill. It's quiet, it's late, and it's much larger than the pain you avoided. So if everything is falling apart right now, I can't promise you it's a good kind. Sometimes it's damage, and damage deserves care. Real care from real people. And there is no shame in that being the answer. But run the question first. Does it stay the same when you turn toward it, or does it start pointing somewhere? Because if it points, you are not failing. Something in you exactly under the pressure it takes to become become different. And the only way to stop pressure is to stop the becoming. Everything got worse for me before any of this made sense. That turned out to be a sign that it was working. I want to tell you something that will sound wrong before I explain it.
Lappy. You don't tell anybody. Lappy.
Some of the most important things that I know about decision making, about handling failure, about ego and pressure, and what happens to your mind when everything going against you, I learned from a video game. Not from a book on psychology, not from therapy, though therapy helped, not from a podcast or a course or a framework, from Counter-Strike. 10 years of it, thousands of matches, hundreds of hours of being in a high-pressure situation where one bad decision ends everything, and you have to live with it for the length of time it takes to watch your team lose. I know how that sounds, but stay with me, because what Counter-Strike taught me about how my mind works under pressure, under failure, under specific stress of things going wrong when they matter most. That knowledge has shown up everywhere. In business, in relationships, in this channel. The game was just a classroom. The lessons had nothing to do with gaming. I want to tell you about tilting. If you've ever played Counter-Strike, you know what tilting is. If you haven't, tilting is what happens to a player when they start losing, and the losing starts affecting their decisions. One bad round becomes a bad mindset. The bad mindset produces worse decisions. The worse decision produces more bad rounds. The spiral accelerates. And the thing about tilting, the thing that took me years to understand, is that it has nothing to do with the game. It is a window into something that was already there before you sat down to play. I remember specific matches. We are down 7 rounds, 2 players dead. The round is almost certainly over. And the choice in that moment is the same choice I faced in a real crisis. Do I play out the situation in front of me with full effort or clear thinking? Or do I let the outcome I'm afraid of contaminate my performance in the present? The first time I consciously made the better choice, in that moment in chaos, staying present, playing clean, doing my part regardless of the likely result, I felt something shift. Not in the game, in how I understood myself. The game just showed me something that no book had managed to show me yet. That my relationship to losing was not about the outcome. It was about my identity. Losing felt like evidence. Evidence that I wasn't good enough. That the round, the game, the effort had proven something about my worth. And the moment I separated the outcome from the evidence, the moment I understood that losing a round said nothing about who I was.
You are doing everything right.
Everything about how I played changed. Lesson 1. Tilting is a choice, not in the moment it starts. The start of a tilt is often automatic. A bad round, a missed shot, a teammate's mistake that costs you something and triggers a reaction. But the continuation of tilting is a choice, because the tilt continues as long as you give it permission.
Yeah.
As long as you let the last round be present in the next one. In Counter-Strike that means every round resets. The scoreboard exists, the history is there, but the next round is played with the situation as it is now, not as it was. I had to learn this in a game before I could apply it to real life, to the failed video, the bad week, the rejection, the creative work that didn't land. Everyday resets. The history is there. The next action is played from now, not from before. Lesson 2. Decision making is not determined by the outcome. This was the hardest lesson and the one that changed most. In Counter-Strike as in life, you can make the right decision and lose. You can make the wrong decision and win. The outcome and the quality of the decision are not the same thing.
Well, we used to look up in the sky and wonder at our place in the stars. Now we just look down and worry about our place in the dirt.
There is a round I remember clearly. We needed to hold a position. I made the textbook decision, the right call, and I was killed by a lucky shot. The old version of me would have tilted.
And then something happened. I let go.
would have interpreted the death as evidence of a bad decision. The developing version of me asked, was that the right call? With the information I had, the outcome was bad, the decision was correct. Learning to hold those two things separately, to evaluate decision by a process rather than the result, that is one of the most useful psychological shifts I have ever made, and I learned it from Counter-Strike before I had a language for it. Lesson 3. Ego is the most expensive thing in a game. CSGO punishes ego directly and immediately. The player who needs to be an entry fragger every round, the player who cannot fall back on a bad game, the player who cannot admit that the strategy isn't working, the person who flames the team instead of adapting.
Weapon is when you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree.
These are not a character flaws in a gaming term, they are ego patterns. The need to be right, the need to be the one who carries, the inability to accept that today is not your day and the team needs something different from you. I had all of them, and every one of them costs around measurably, visibly, immediately. The feedback loop in Counter-Strike is brutally honest. The ego pattern appears, the round is lost, the connection between the two is impossible to ignore if you are watching yourself honestly. In real life, that feedback loop is slower. The connection between ego and cost is measured in months and years. Counter-Strike compressed that to 90 seconds and made the education unavoidable. Lesson 4. You cannot control your teammate. That sounds obvious. That's not so obvious when you are inside it. The deepest frustration in Counter-Strike is when a teammate is making decisions that cost you something and you cannot change their behavior. I spent years being frustrated by this, and then I understood something that changed everything. The only performance I can control is mine. When a teammate costs me a round, my performance in the next round is entirely my responsibility. I can play that round well or poorly. The teammate's mistake don't determine that. I do. This sounds simple. It's not simple until you have failed to do it hundreds of times in high pressure situation and eventually learn what it actually requires. It requires a fundamental shift from outcomes to actions, from result to what you can control. That shift took me years in Counter-Strike. It transferred immediately to everything else. What Counter-Strike was teaching me, without naming it, is something psychologists called the locus of control. Julian Rotter's concept from 1950s. The degree to which you believe you have control over the outcomes in your life. External locus, the game is rigged, the teammates are bad, the luck was against me, the situation was impossible. Internal locus, my decisions, my performance, my response to what happens. This is what I am responsible for. High performers in any fields trend toward internal locus, not because the world is always fair. It isn't. The Counter-Strike proves it consistently. But because internal locus keeps you focused on the only thing that can actually improve your own performance and your own choices. Chaos forced me to the internal locus, because external locus produced tilts that cost me directly and visibly. The feedback was immediate. The lesson was unavoidable. The game had no patience for excuses, and neither eventually did I. I still play Counter-Strike, not the way I used to. Fewer matches, more selective about when and why. But what I bring to those matches is different from what I brought 10 years ago. Losing a round doesn't mean what it used to mean. A bad game doesn't carry to the next one. A teammate's mistake is theirs, my response is mine. And when something goes wrong in the game or outside of it, the question I ask is not why did this happen to me? It is what do I do with this now? The game taught me that. Not the victories, not the high ranks, the 10,000 rounds of things going wrong and having to decide every time what kind of player you are going to be in the round that follows. The practice transfers. I want to ask you something. The life you are living right now, the city you wake up in, the work you do every day, the relationship you maintain, the version of yourself you present to the world. Did you choose it or did you inherit it? Did you build it deliberately, consciously, based on what you actually want? Or did you walk into a version of life that was already mostly assembled by your family, your culture, your city, your fear of what people would say if you tried something different and call it your own? Because here's something most people spend entire their lifetimes not understanding. You can choose a different one. Not someday, not when you have enough money, not when everything lines up perfectly. You can choose differently right now, from where you are. And the fact that you don't already know that, the fact that this sentence feels more frightening than the feeling, says everything about how truly the world taught you that your life was not actually yours to design. I want to tell you about two moments. The first, I'm in Thailand, not on a vacation, living there. Waking up every morning in a place most people I knew ever seen on photo. Working, creating, moving through a world in a way that felt like mine. And I remember the specific feeling of sitting somewhere, a market, a beach, a small restaurant where nobody knew my name, and understanding for the first time that I actually chosen this. Not accepted it, not fallen into it, chosen it with full awareness, knowing what I was leaving behind, knowing it might not work, choosing it anyway. The second moment, Bali. Same feeling, different place, the same realization landing deeper. That the version of life I'd been handed at the beginning was not the only version available. That the coordinates of my existence were not fixed by birth or culture or expectations. That human life is not a fixed track. You walk from point A to point B, hoping the track goes somewhere worth going. It's a field, you can walk in every direction. Now I want to be honest about something. Getting to Thailand and Bali didn't happen because I had it figured out. It happened in the middle of rebuilding. After addiction, after psychosis, after complete collapse of one version of my life. The freedom wasn't a reward of getting it right. The freedom was what I reached for when everything else had already fallen apart. And that's when I understood. You don't choose your own life after you've built a perfect foundation. You choose it when you finally decide that the version you were handed no longer fits. Here's what actually happens to most people. You are born into a specific context, a family, a culture, a set of expectations about what a good life looks like, what success means, what you are supposed to want. And for the first 20, 25, sometimes 40 years of your life, you absorb these expectations so completely that they started to feel like your own. Psychologists call this introjection, the process by which external values, beliefs and expectations are taken in and experienced as internal.
It is a lie. They know.
As yours, not as a belief of your parent or your culture or your social environment. As you. This is not a manipulation, it's not conspiracy, it's just how humans develop. We learn about what is valued, we internalize it, we pursue it, and we genuinely believe we are pursuing what we want until the day, if this day ever comes, when something breaks the spell, when you're standing in a place you never expected to be and you realize I chose this, or you are standing in a life that looks exactly like it's supposed to look like and you realize I never choose any of this. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called this anxiety of freedom, the specific discomfort that arrives when you truly understand that your life is not determined, that there is no pre-written script, that every day you continue the life you have is a choice, passive, maybe unconscious, maybe, but still a choice, and every day you could choose differently. This realization is terrifying before it's liberating, because if your life is a choice, you can't blame circumstances anymore. You can't wait for permission. You can't say it wasn't available for you. The freedom is real, and the weight of freedom is real. Here's the other side of this. Most people who understand that freedom is available still don't take it. Not because they can, because cost of freedom is uncertainty. And the brain is not wired to choose uncertainty over a familiar discomfort. The assigned life is uncomfortable sometimes, but it's known. The chosen life is uncertain, and the brain treats uncertainty like a danger. So people stay not because they have to, because the choice to live requires tolerating something that nervous system was designed to avoid. I want to be clear about something. Choosing your own life is not the same like moving to Thailand or Bali. That's one version, my version, for that specific period of my life. Choosing your own life means something simpler and more demanding than geography. It means being the author of your own decision rather than inheritor of someone else's. It means why you want what you want, not what you were told to want, not what makes sense on paper, what you actually want, underneath the introjection, underneath the performance of an appropriate life. It means be willing to disappoint that version of yourself that other people need you to be. That last one is the hardest, because the people around you build their expectation on who you've been.
Just say it.
I can't.
And changing means those expectations goes unmet, not because you owe them nothing, but because you owe yourself the honesty of living from the inside out rather than from outside in. So how do you actually begin? Not in a dramatic leap, not with buying one-way ticket to somewhere, with 3 honest questions asked seriously. First, ask yourself what you want if nobody is watching. Not what you'd do if you had more money. Not what you'd do if you have a permission. What would you want if you could be guaranteed that nobody whose opinion you care about would ever find out? The answer to that question is the most honest map of your actual desires that you are going to get. Most people have never asked that seriously, because the answer requires to admit how far they are from what actually they want. Ask what you are standing for. Every life has things that hold you in place. Relationships, obligations, fear or comfort. Some of those things are real and worth staying for. Some of them are just the weight of the familiar. And honestly, which is this? Am I staying because I actually want to be here? Or I'm staying because leaving would require to become someone I'm not sure I'm allowed to be? So take the smallest possible step toward the version you actually want, not the whole journey, one step small enough to be real in the direction of the life you choose. If you will know that you are allowed to. The permission is not coming. It never was. The step is how you give it to yourself. I still remember what it felt like to wake up in Thailand and understand that I had chosen to be there, not right there. Chosen. There is a difference that is hard to explain until you feel it. The difference between a life that happens to you and the life you happen to, between existing in the circumstances you inherited and creating the circumstances you meant. You can choose your own USA, you can choose your own Thailand, your own Bali, your own Warsaw, your own version of life that feels like it was made from inside rather than handed over from the outside. It's not guaranteed to be easy. It will not make everyone around you comfortable. It will require you to tolerate the specific anxiety of being responsible for your own life rather than being a passenger in someone else's version of it, but the alternative, a passive inheritance of an assigned life. The slow accumulation of years in a shape you never chose. That has a cost too. One that compounds quietly, that shows up at 3 AM, that whispers that isn't it. This is not what you actually wanted. And you knew it. You always knew it. You know it. The question is what you will do with that knowing. Tell me in comments what will you choose if nobody was watching you. And press like and subscribe. This will help this video to reach people like you. So let's rise together. Have a good flight, fam. That's my real dashboard. 3 years on YouTube, 100 videos published and 71 subscribers. Not a success story, something rarer one. An honest one with every number on screen.
What is happening? I won't let this define me.
In this video you will see all the analytics of 3 years, the click-through rate when they were embarrassing, the videos that got only 6 views next to the one that have 172 views, the graphs from every side experiment I ran, the shorts, the reels, the podcast, the extra channels, and the exact data that made me kill some of them. Because here's the thing about this experiment, and after 3 years I can call it properly. I didn't just test whether a channel could grow. I tested what happens to a person who keep building when the numbers give them nothing back. The channel data fits in a screenshot. What happened to the person is the actual finding. And there's one number buried in my analytics that changed everything. It's not views, it's not subscribers. It's the number that made 71 subscribers stop hurting. And when I found it, I stopped needing this channel to be big in order to be worth it. I'll show it to you at the end, on screen, when you have a context to read it. There is also an experiment in here that I ran twice and killed twice. And the second killing taught me more than most of my success. Year 1 first, the bland year. The channel didn't start as a strategy, it started as a place, what I'd survive. After addiction, after my mind stopped being a safe place. After years of therapy, started turning wreckage into understanding. I had things I knew and nowhere to say them. The channel was me thinking out loud.
You are the best. Keep going.
trying to say things clearly enough that a stranger like you could use them. The audience was theoretical, the need wasn't. The first video took months and not for editing.
Worth $7 million per year, and his actual net worth is more than $150 billion.
I've been rich and I've been poor.
Editing is my profession. For filming. The first time I recorded myself, I couldn't look at the camera. I was afraid of my own face on the screen. I reshot sentences because of a flinch. Now the honest numbers. Click-through rate this year about 0.5%. 99.5 people out of 100 saw my thumbnail and chose anything else. Average view duration 10 to 30 seconds. People weren't watching. They were glancing and leaving. A video about Jung I was proud of. 11 views. A Hollywood analysis, 6 views. And here's what I discovered about myself that year. I'd claimed the views didn't matter.
I see it now. The path is clear. No longer a mystery, just execution.
That I was making this to myself. Year 1 called that bluff. Every upload opened a window to a small anxiety, and I checked the numbers inside it like a man checking a slot machine. The metrics owned my morning. Eventually I built a rule about that, a specific replacement for the morning number checking, and it's still running today. I'll show it to you in the results. But first, year 2, the year I almost stopped, and the year I now know was actually built. Year 1 had beginner's energy, year 2 had nothing. The middle of a long thing is a specific place, the novelty is dead, the arrival is nowhere in sight, and the work asks you to keep investing in something that produces no visible movement. I almost stopped, not in a crisis, in the quiet way the things actually stops. Gaps between video stretching, rationalizations getting smoother, busy meaning afraid that this was all it would ever be. What kept me wasn't a faith in this channel. It was noticing almost against my will that I was getting better. Not the numbers, the craft. Better at thinking on camera, better at finding the sentence that carries the idea, better at knowing what I believed versus what I was supposed to believe. Invisible to any viewer, completely visible to me. That was the year I learned what self-belief actually is.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel. Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
And it's not a feeling, it's a practice. The repeated decision to continue without external evidence that continuing is justified. Nobody hands it to you. The work builds it or nothing does. And if you are in your underground here right now, with anything, a channel, a body, a rebuild, this is the video to like. It genuinely helps to reach the next person in their bamboo phase. And comment what you are building that nobody sees yet. I read everyone. And this comment section is a no vanity zone. My numbers are literally on screen. Year 2 ended with a decision that looked like ambition and nearly broke me. I decided that if channel wasn't working, I simply wasn't doing enough. And the year 3 becomes a year of doing everything. Here's everything I tested with numbers and what each one taught me. Shorts on the main channel, 2 per day. The first shot pulled around 1,000 views. Launch boost. Then reality. 3 to 14 views per short, the platform calibrating. I also hit a stretch where impressions flatlined to 0. A technical anomaly, not a content verdict. And learning to tell those apart was its own education. Verdict reduced and monitored. Short stayed, the volume dropped because the completion rate, not the view count, turned out to be the only number there worth reading. Instagram Reels. 30 Reels in the first 9 days. Over 3,000 views. Objectively my fastest moving platform. Kept because the numbers says keep, and that's the whole system now. The data decides, not my mood. The podcast episodes prepared, published on a schedule, and numbers came back to 0, paused without drama. Here's the reframe that took me 3 years to earn. Quitting a tested thing isn't a failure, it's the experiment succeeding. It produced a clear answer, and the answer was no. And the experiment I ran twice and killed twice. Extra channels. The first time, the second channel on another language, 2 more videos a week on top of everything. And within a month I heard the sound I know from harder years of my life, the early hum of burnout. I trust that rather completely now. I closed the channel and felt relief, and I learned to read that relief precisely. It's information Then, recently I built the channels again, 2 music channels, 3 videos so far. But here's why this isn't the same mistake twice. The first time was a sprint logic, more as panic. This time it's a portfolio decision. Different assert, different effort curve, mostly systemized production. And with the hard rule attached, the main channel rhythm is untouchable. Same looking move, different machinery. Knowing the difference took both killings. And through all of it, the main channel itself turned click-through rates from 0.5% to nearly 2%. Average view duration from 30 seconds to 2 and more minutes. 4 times longer. Same face, same room, the difference was learning another structure. Open loops, stories cut before resolution, sections that end on tension. Watch time up 300% in the recent stretch. Small numbers, but every slope finally points up. So after 100 videos and every experiment, what's the honest ledger? The public column, 100 videos, 71 subscribers, a record of 172 views. Variants still wild. 172 views in one video and on another is 5 views. Subscriber conversion about 1%, half of healthy. Openly my number one problem to solve. By external metrics, a rounding error. The other column, a scripting system with the named repeatable structures. Packaging decisions baked by my own data, instead of guru's rule. The publishing rhythm that runs whether I'm inspired or not. Skills that compound across everything. The editing, the writing, the scripting, all of it sharper because this channel demands them weekly. A newsletter where I'm writing a quieter parts. And the promised replacement for a morning checking, a standing rule, no analytics checking for 48 hours after upload, and weekly review instead of a daily spiral. The morning belongs to making things now. That single rule returned more hours than any productivity system I'd ever tested. About the quieter parts, some of what these 3 years taught me doesn't fit in video. The parts I say more slowly. Once a week I write them as a letter. It's called ShigaPOV letter. Free, link in the description and the pinned comment. And there's a workbook with 30 questions from 4 years of therapy waiting there as a welcome. If this video feels like it's about you, the letters will too. And the one result that fits in no column. I can look at the camera now, go back to the man reshooting sentences because of a flinch and tell him that's nothing. So here's the number I promised, the one that made 71 subscribers stop hurting. It's this one, 100, published, not planned. And here's why it beats every other number on the dashboard. Every other metrics on this screen is something that the algorithm did. The views, the impressions, the subscribers, all of it decided by a system I can't control. 100 is the only number on this entire platform that I choose. 100 times, mostly on days when every other number says don't bother. The scoreboard YouTube shows measures what happens to the channel. That number 100 measures what happened through me. And the person who used to live in an escape, who once needed a reward machine running just to stay in the room, choosing unrewarded things 100 times in a row, that's not a content strategy. That's the experiment result. That's what 3 years actually built. The first time I filmed myself, I couldn't look at the camera. I was afraid of my own face on screen. 3 years and 100 videos later, I'm still here. Not because it got easier, because I stopped waiting for it to get easy. If you are building something small right now, something the numbers say to stop, here's the whole education in one line. The results will not arrive on your schedule. The belief will not feel natural before you earn it. And the person you become by continuing is the actual payment. Everything else is the evidence. Keep going, not because you know it will work, because the version of you that keeps going is someone worth becoming.